After completing the moeds of Tisha B'av, we have another moed, which is Tu B'av, and the Mishnah in Tainus 26b tells us an incredible thing that there were no greater festivals for the Jewish people than Yom Kippur and Tu B'av. Now we understand Yom Kippur. The Gemara says all a person's affairs are wiped away, but Tu B'av, what's Tu B'av all about? Why is Tu B'av considered is counted amongst the most important Yomim Tovim on the Jewish calendar? We really have to understand this question because the Gemara doesn't make exaggerations. The Gemara is saying something; it's saying something very, very important, and we really have to try to delve into this and deeply understand it. That's one question. Another question we could ask ourselves is that Tu B'av is very instantly positioned in the Jewish calendar. Generally speaking, in most years, Tu B'av is 7 days. It's the seventh day after Tisha B'av, right? If we count Tisha B'av as the ninth, then you have the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th. It's the seventh day after Tisha B'av. This year Tisha B'av is Nidcha, so it's 6 days, but generally it's the seventh day after Tisha B'av. What's the significance of that? And what's the deeper significance of Tu B'av all in all? So Chazal tell us that five major things happened on Tu B'av. Right? One of them was that in the Midbar, the decree in the Midbar that everyone in the Midbar should die, the Jews in the desert should die, that stopped on Tu B'av. And the second one was that the dead of Beitar were allowed to be buried. Hundreds of thousands of people were slaughtered in Beitar, and their bodies they were allowed to be buried, and their bodies were still intact, even though time had passed. Two decrees that prohibited marriage in between Klal Yisrael, right, in between with Shevet Binyamin, and then between the Shvatim as well, were removed. And finally, the roadblocks that Yeravim and Nevat had put up in Yerushalayim, blocking the roads to Yerushalayim, they were removed. So these 5 degrees, that's the yontiv of Tisha B'av. We look at each one, it doesn't seem like things which were so worthy of being the most important yontiv. You have Sukkot, Anana, you covered, you have Pesach, Yetzias Mitzrayim. These things much more worthy of the accolade to be the most important yontif on the Jewish calendar. How can we call Tu B'av the most important yontif? We understand Yom Kippur, all a person's errors, transgressions erased. Yisrael Salanta says if we only had one Yom Kippur in our whole life, it would be worthwhile. But how can we consider Tu B'av to be the most important yontif on the Jewish calendar? So much so, the Gemara says that the women would go out in the fields, they would sing and dance, and many, many shidduchim were made on that time. Right? How can we consider Tu B'av to be such an important day? What is it? What is it about? Each of these 5 things do not seem so critical, do not seem so significant in themselves. What is it that makes Tu B'av such a important yontif? I'm going to leave this question as food for thought. I'm about to Hashem in the next class we're going to revisit and try to understand better what the yontif of Tu B'av in fact is really all about. Why is it? But just a little hint. It's not going to be any one of these occurrences that is the reason that Tu B'av is such an important day. It's a combination of them all together. That's point number one. And point number two, we have to understand. So, what's the goal of Tu B'av? What is Tu B'av coming to teach us? What is Tu B'av? What's the message of Tu B'av? Right? And again, we said that Tu B'av is 7 days after Tisha B'av. So, what's the connection between Tu B'av and Tisha B'av? These are some things, food for thought, to think about as we get closer to the end of Tu B'av. Amen.